because now more than ever we must show discipline, tolerance, and production to build a strong and better nation. I say that is the main foundation. So come let us work hand in hand, because this is our land. Come my brother, come my sister, and let us build a nation together. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, Remember, the key to success is working hard.
Yes, my brother, my sister, let us work together to build Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. I want to welcome you to this segment in the program where I will lay a solid foundation, sharing the positive things that are happening here in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique with you, because it is important that we do so. You see, there are those in this country who are bent on only highlighting things that they disagree with, right? So, for example, the government spoke about the celebrations for 50th independence, and you know how many days? I think it's about what 365 days or almost that. But because they're unhappy with the announcement that the 19th of October will be a holiday, and that is when the whole celebration will kick off. They're bitter about that, so they're not concerned about the other things that have been discussed, right? The Heroes Park and naming some of our heroes and so on, and they're not interested in that. They're only interested in what they disagree with, what they're unhappy with. And mind you, many a times it's just a personal feeling, a personal position that they take. It's not the majority of Grenada. The majority of Grenadians are happy that that day is a holiday. They get some time to spend with their family and friends. And if they're big into the revolution and the past, then they, you know, look at a day of remembrance, a day of reflection, and so on. But that's Grenada. That's Grenada. There are folks who major in minor stuff. That is what they focus on, and not the major things. So let me at this point start to highlight some of the positive things that are happening in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, because you see there are people out there who are they get somewhat angry, somewhat upset when we highlight the positive things that are happening in the country. So Nawasa, they're happy. And I think all Grenadians should be happy with the injection of $125 million. That is the single most amount of cash injected in Nawasa to really improve the water network in the country. $125 million. So it will be changing a lot of pipes and so on. That's the way to go. A lot of storage facilities will be built, will be installed, will be set up, and that is what we want here in Grenada. We are using pipes 100 years old, 80 years old, all right? So it's really a good thing when you hear about that kind of injection. Jobs will be created, opportunities will be created for our people.
Grenada's water sector will see much needed transformation following the sword turning ceremony held earlier this week. Grenada Climate Resilient Water Sector GCRUISE project was launched at the Maribor Propagating Station, representing the largest single investment in the water sector. $125 million will be invested for the project and co-financed by the Green Climate Fund, the Government of Grenada, and the German Federal Ministry of the Environment. The project represents a thorough approach to mitigating two critical climate risks and vulnerabilities in Grenada freshwater availability sustainability and disaster preparedness. Group 1 pipeline installation project is a partnership between the Government of Grenada, German Development Corporation and the National Water and Sewage Authority, NWASA. Pipeline installation and placement of the water storage tanks in 3 general areas cover Group 1 of the project. General Manager of NWASA, Christopher Husbands, further explains the components of the project.
The Group 1 component of the GCRUISE consists of 2 main elements: pipeline and water storage tank installation in 3 general areas. Construction work is set to begin shortly on the longest pipe run, which takes us from the Maribo water treatment plant all the way up to Tivoli. And we're going to be installing a 500,000, 500,000 gallon storage tank on the plant in Maribo and a new storage tank on the plant in Peggy's Way. The second area will involve a 500,000 gallon storage tank in Tufton Hall and the replacement of the water lines from the Tufton Hall water treatment plant to Queen Street in Victoria. And this is an investment that is critical to the efficient supply of the entire area of Diamond.
Keynote address speaker Prime Minister Honorable Deacon Mitchell said Grenada will benefit significantly as lives and communities will be impacted.
This project intends to ensure that the public, as users of potable water and the water infrastructure, can ensure that we have a sustainable and reliable water supply for the foreseeable decades to come. The project also includes ensuring that there are behavioral changes as to how we use, consume, store our water. It also includes raising awareness about the risk posed to us from climate change in relation to our water supply and our water use.
Teddy St. Louis, Deputy Chairman of the NWASA Board of Directors, described the project as crucial since Grenada is not excluded from the effects of climate change.
The challenges that climate change has presented to small island developing states like Grenada, with escalating temperatures and low rainfall, makes this partnership not only timely, but relevant. NWASA welcomes the opportunity to implement climate-resilient projects throughout the Tri-Island state by comprehensively addressing freshwater availability as well as our preparedness for disaster and extreme weather events.
Finally, employees from the Land Use Division and Extension within the Ministry of Agriculture, in collaboration with the National Disaster Management Agency,
that project, that's a very, very important project if you ask me. $125 million going into that. Jobs will be created. So again, we must applaud the government of Grenada for such investment. This is great. This is great news. And I am certain the folks in St. Andrew going toward St. Patrick, they will be happy to hear that. And also from St. Patrick down to St. Mark, because we already have a good system from St. John all the way down to the south. So I think that will cover us nicely in Grenada. And what I'm happy about, not just the storage and water availability and supply and so on, but jobs will be created for our people. Let's move to another positive.
The Grenada Tourism Authority says Virgin Atlantic will increase its service at the Maurice Bishop International Airport from 2 flights to 3 flights per week during the winter season. The carrier currently flies an Airbus 330-300 with 264 seats to Grenada on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and will add a 3rd weekly service on Fridays starting December 8th, 2023 through to March 29th, 2024. All 3 services fly from London Heathrow via Barbados, which marks a significant step in enhancing convenience of accessibility to the destination. Chairman of the Grenada Tourism Authority, Randall Darlan, said, "We are delighted to welcome this third frequency to Grenada. It is a clear indication that our tourism product continues on an upward trajectory." CEO of the GTA Petro Road said, and I quote, "This additional capacity perfectly aligns with the increased demand for events like the England versus West Indies Test cricket match and our 50th anniversary of independence, for which we anticipate a significant uptick of arrivals from the diaspora who are keen to celebrate this auspicious occasion with family and friends on island," unquote.
That news there is a good news again, because we are having more flights coming into Grenada from the United Kingdom. We know of the United States with JetBlue and the other flights that's coming here, American Airline. And look, it was not like that before. And I want to repeat that. I want to re-emphasize that. It was not like that before. We are getting more flights because the GTA, together with the government, they're working extremely hard to market Grenada and to get the flights into Grenada. And we must commend the Grenada Board of Tourism, or the Grenada Tourism Authority, right? So they changed. The Grenada Tourism Authority, for the work that they are doing to get flights into Grenada. It's not easy, but they have been able to do it successfully over and over again. This is not a small feat. This is huge for Grenada, because the folks can come to Grenada at least twice or three times from the United Kingdom, right, per week. This is huge. And that is why I'm saying we have to talk about the positive things that are happening in the country, because it was not like that before. During the NNP time, it was just difficulty upon difficulty to get to and from Grenada. And it was always some kind of TB with Liat and, the Prime Minister at the time, always back and forth with Liat and some kind of confusion. But here you have a government who is not just talking, but they are doing the work and they're getting results. So when you hear some people say, well, what they're able to get, they're traveling, what they're able to get out of it, what are the results of? Here you're seeing it. But for some people, they're conveniently blind. It's happening, and they just want to believe that it's not happening. But I tell you, boy, let us continue to highlight the good news, the good things that are happening in Grenada, Carriacou, and the PT Martinique, because all people deserve that. All people want that. All right? So let me now move to another good news. Government's policy on Crown lands.
Government will soon bring the necessary legislation to Parliament to ensure the protection of Grenada's Crown lands, especially those located in strategic areas along the country's coastline. As part of this new thrust by the government, any land which has not yet been transferred as freehold land and still remains in the state of Grenada will only be transferred by way of leasehold. This means that land that has not already been sold to investors, as was done under the previous administration, the Deacon Mitchell-led administration will put legislation in place to ensure that this is never done again, only allowing prime government land to be leased. Over the past few months, government has taken steps in this direction and most recently has been able to regain ownership of the Crown land, which houses the Radisson Hotel.
The single largest acreage on Grandlands Beach is the site that houses the Radisson Hotel. That site has always been leasehold until former administrations made the decision to, in fact, transfer what we call the reversion to the lease or the freehold to private individuals. I will not get into the rationale or reasons for why that was done. The long and short of it, though, is that this year we faced the unenviable situation that even the reversion to the freehold could have been further transferred to a private individual. What that meant is that the rents that the government once collected from having leased the site to the hotelier was in fact being paid to a private individual, and we were not collecting the rent. It also meant that we had no control over the site because we were not the landlord, and therefore we could not enforce the lease, nor could we speak to any future development of the site. And so the government took the decision to in fact repurchase the reversion from Timebook Holdings Limited. That transaction is scheduled to be closed on October 15th, and henceforth the government will become the landlord. It will once again begin resuming the rent collections, and it would put us as landlord in a position to in fact ensure that the lease is complied with, but I think more importantly, be able to ensure that we remain the development partner with the hotelier for the future development of the site.
Another major development on the government's policy on Crown lands is the state's resumption of ownership of the property which now houses the incomplete Kimpton by Kawana Bay Hotel project. The former administration sold the property to the new developers, but during the construction phase, a public fallout ensued between the then government and the property owners, which saw the matter going before the International Court for the settlement of investment disputes, and the state of Grenada sued for millions of dollars. Government was successful in engaging the developers and was able to acquire the site at a cost of $22 million.
In summary, the government made the decision to acquire the site so that we could in fact put ourselves in a position to have fresh negotiations with a new developer so that this project could in fact be completed successfully, so that construction could resume, so that several hundreds of Grenadians who were once working on the site and who became unemployed as a result of the construction site closing could look forward to resumption of work on the site, to resumption of employment, and ultimately to a hotel actually being completed on the site. So the government has acquired the site. It has acquired the site at a cost of $22 million. We will be making the necessary payments between now and next year to the main owner of the site. The result of this is that the arbitration proceedings between the developer and the state of Grenada has come to an end. And we are happy to report that because the legal fees associated with defending the ICSID arbitration was running the people of Grenada into the several hundreds of thousands of US dollars, if not, it had already reached millions of US dollars in legal fees for a dispute that we felt was certainly not necessary and one that was created and should never have happened in the first place. Having acquired the site, the government is currently engaged in significant and advanced discussions with potential developers over their taking over the site to resume construction. At this stage, we have not yet concluded a definitive deal, but we feel quite optimistic that we would be in a position to come back shortly to announce the conclusion of this definitive deal. I will make this point though, the site will only be transferred via leasehold. It will not be transferred via freehold.
Right, so that's good news. Those on the other side will not talk about that. The good news, here it is. The land where this hotel sits, yes, it's on complete the property, the hotel, but the land was transferred under the NNP administration to a private owner. The land was our land in our name, and it was leased to the previous hotel owners or the owners of Flamboyant. You could say what you want about Uncle Gary. He never sold lands on Grandans Beach. He leased the lands. Only one prime minister who came in this country, served for a very long time, and decided to give the lands to certain people in their name and not lease it, give them title to the land. So the land belongs to them. Amazing. So we were no longer the landlords. The government and people of Grenada were no longer the landlords. In fact, there is a particular piece of land that's about, 20 acres, where a hotel sits right now. it was transferred to a private individual, right? His company, in his name, his company, that was transferred to the company that he owns or that represents him. And instead of the government getting the rent, the lease, because every year the hotel has to give about $250,000 to the government of Grenada, that money was going to him instead. That is how unpatriotic the previous administration was. The money that was supposed to come to government was going to that private individual, that company that the private individual has. Amazing. And the land was in his name. The company's name, the land was in his company's name. So they don't want to have that kind of conversation because it will show them up in a negative light. So they want to cherry pick certain things and talk about it. Let us have a conversation as we move towards 50 years of independence. Let us talk about this particular move by the previous administration to sell out our birthright, to give away our lands for nothing. Because really and truly, these people didn't pay anything for our lands. No, they were just given the lands. It's amazing, boy. But I'm happy that the government is making moves with legislation to prevent that from happening as we move forward. I really love that.
A second round of consultations will begin in the coming weeks as government moves toward implementing a baseline salary scale for employees in 2024. That decision was made following the submission of a report from the Wages Advisory Committee in August after the first round of consultations aimed at revising the minimum wage in Grenada. Legal Affairs Minister Senator the Honorable Claudette Joseph, during a press conference earlier this week, said government will first meet with stakeholders to get buy-in to the move to standardize daily salary scales.
Right. So this particular one is good in terms of the wages. And remember, folks, it is minimum wage adjustment. So they're adjusting the minimum wage. This morning, for example, a gentleman called on a morning program. He's a security officer. And he's saying, well, he thinks they should increase that minimum wage to $10 or $11. It's now, well, the proposal on the table is for it to be $9.25, all right, per hour for security officers. But remember, it is minimum wage, meaning that it can't be lower, but it could also be higher. It's the minimum that you can ever get. Remember, it was the NDC who came into power in 2008 and increased the hourly wage for security officers from $4 to $8. The NNP was in power for 20-something years. They never, ever adjusted the minimum wage in this country. Some people underestimate the kind of work the NDC is doing here. They are life-changing, and that is what you call transformation. The NNP was in power for so long, and they never one day adjusted the minimum wage, the wage that a person in this country is entitled to by law. Because remember, the person who you are employed with could decide to go with exactly what the minimum wage was or is. Even if you go to any court anywhere, you can't win them because they can go back to what the minimum wage law says. So that is why you have some people working in the Indian store for $30 a day, or the Syrian store for $30 a day and $35 a day, because the minimum wage is what it is, minimum wage. So the person, the employer, could actually pay you the minimum wage, and that's it. Right? But some, they've been giving you far more, but it has to be adjusted in law. So you know for a fact the employer cannot pay you anything less than. So the proposal of $60, for example, in the Indian store, they cannot pay you once it's law. They cannot pay you less than the $60, but they could pay you more. So do not get this thing confused. There are some people believe that because they hear this amount that's fixed. No, it is called minimum wage, the minimum. They can go all the way up. They can have a maximum, but the minimum, so they can pay you nothing less than what the minimum says, but they can pay you more. And remember, to the security officers out there, remember, you were collecting $4 an hour. And you know, this morning, again, my mind went back to that point I made sometime last week. We can easily forget where we came from with all the nice and all the good things that are happening for our people. We can easily forget that you, the security officers under the NNP administration, for all the many years, were actually collecting $4 an hour. $4 an hour. It took the NDC in 2008 to increase that by 100% to $8 an hour. And now they're making move to increase it by $1.25 more to bring it to $9.25 per hour. So we can easily forget where we came from as a people, as workers. For example, there are some people who already forget that they were struggling in the streets, marching under the NNP every day, fighting for their pension and their gratuity. Now that they get their pension, now that they get their gratuity, they forget where they came from and what existed then and what the NDC did to bring us to this point. Because you can easily forget when things are going all nice now for you. But to reach to this point, it was struggle. To reach to this point, it took a government with a vision, a people-centered government, to come in and pay you your pension and pay you your gratuity. But under the NNP, that was not happening. And that is a conversation that we must have, you know. Because the NNPs out there giving you this impression that when they were in government, they were doing good things for our people. They were transforming our people. And so that is what they're giving you that idea. And in some instances, they want you to believe that they were only in power for 9 years. NNP was in power for almost quarter of a century, almost 25 years. And I am saying to you, lest we forget where we came from, what existed under the NNP, and what the NDC did to cause you to be so happy now, where you got your gratuity, you got your pension, and you're getting your pension every month until you die. That was not possible under the NNP. It's the same thing when it comes to the security officers. Same thing. Under the NNP, you're working for $4 an hour. When NDC came in 2008, they increased it to $8 an hour. And now they're moving it to $9.25 per hour. But remember, every 3 years, by law, the minimum wage should be adjusted to suit the rate of inflation and other factors, other variables. The NNP refused for 23 years and a half to go according to the law and adjust the minimum wage in this country. The NNP refused. And that is something that you need to think about, because the NNP, they want you to focus on certain things. They want you to focus on October the 19th as a holiday, and whether they like it or whether they dislike it. They want you to focus on that. They want you to focus on trivial, minor things, right? But there are a lot of good things that are happening for our people, and we must face that fact. because people can easily forget when things are all cool and normalized, the tuition support that the government is giving to students who attending TAMCC and NULO. That money, that $810, is a lot of money to give to any child, any family. And you're giving them that 2 years of their life at college or at the tertiary level. But before, your parents had to find that money to pay. You got that free. Government is paying that for you. And people can become so comfortable that, okay, it's no longer required. We don't have to pay it. But for those parents who know about finding that money to pay, they are extremely appreciative. They are extremely thankful and grateful that it took this government to come in and remove that tuition cost, remove that $810, and government is paying it, not the parents. This is a big thing, but people can easily forget that because you become so accustomed. After a period of time, it's like it was never there. You didn't have to pay it before. But really, you had to pay it. You had to find the money to pay it. So we have to remember those things, because you can easily be blown away with all that's happening here, and you're happy, you're all cool, and not reflecting on where we came from and what existed under NNP. We can easily forget that. You know, this morning I was listening to 3 programs, right? And a thought came to mind. You know, nearly all the programs that the government roll out, the real beneficiaries of those programs are the poor and the vulnerable people. So while the NNP keep talking about the poor and the vulnerable, and you ain't care about the poor and the vulnerable, and you ain't doing this and doing that for the poor and vulnerable, nearly all the social safety net programs, nearly all the initiatives are really get towards helping the poor and the vulnerable to get out of where they are, to become independent, to become self-sufficient, to become a real provider for your family, right? That is what it is. Sometimes we have to look deeper. There are so many programs get towards this demographic within our society.
Meanwhile, on the margins of the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York, Grenada has signed joint communiques establishing diplomatic relations with the Kingdom of Bahrain, Ireland, and the Republic of Kenya. Grenada's Minister for Foreign Affairs, Honorable Joseph Andal, and his counterpart from Bahrain, Mr. Abdul Atif Al Zayani, signed a formal exchange of communique strengthening the friendship and cooperation between the two countries in the areas of political, economic, trade, and cultural and other fields of mutual interest. Honorable Joseph Andal and his counterpart from Ireland, His Excellency Mr. Joseph Hackett, Secretary General of the Department of Foreign Affairs, also signed a formal exchange of communique to strengthen the friendship and cooperation between the two countries in political, economic, trade, cultural, and other fields of mutual interest. Minister Andal and Secretary General Hackett discussed the impact of the climate crisis on Grenada and explored technical cooperation in areas of climate mitigation. They also explored the possibility of making Grenadian and Caribbean agricultural produce and products accessible to European markets. A joint communique was also signed with the Republic of Kenya. Foreign Affairs Minister Honorable Joseph Andal and Dr. Alfred Muta, Cabinet Secretary for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, signed a formal exchange of communique strengthening the friendship and cooperation between the two countries in political, economic, trade, cultural, and other fields of mutual interest.
Yeah. So I want to commend the Honorable Joseph Andal there, because you see his ministry is not one where you would always see him in the public. His ministry requires that kind of work, signing communiques, signing agreements, building relationships around the world, right? Country to country and so on. So I'm really, really happy to see that he continues to do a fantastic job, and he must be commended for that. He's doing an excellent job as Minister of Foreign Affairs. And I'm saying again, it is not the Ministry of Mobilization, Implementation, and Transformation. It is not the Ministry of Works, where you're going to actually see things and see them often. But he's doing a really, really good job. So I want to commend him on that front. So we have to continue to highlight the good things that are happening in the country.
The National Disaster Management Agency is now more equipped to reduce vulnerabilities during peak disaster periods, following the donation of over $450,000 worth of equipment and training from the U.S. Southern Command. This week, the equipment for both centers in Manjulu and Bele Karieku were officially handed over to NADMA officials as part of the Emergency Operations Center and Disaster Warehouse projects. Training was also provided for use and maintenance of the equipment. Disaster Coordinator Dr. Terrence Walters thanked the U.S. government for its continued support and assured that the gift will strengthen the agency's capabilities to effectively build resilience and reduce vulnerabilities.
Our mission is to ensure that the country is prepared for any hazards that may occur. And so we have to ensure that there's institutional strengthening. And this is part of our institutional strengthening push, where we ensure that the entity, the agency, NADMA, has the necessary building equipment, staff, all the things that are necessary so that the agency can respond to hazards effectively and provide the services for the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. So we did not leave out Carriacou because Carriacou has its brand new building, and so we will do probably similar to this in Carriacou a little later on. But we've also benefited previously because we have district emergency operation centers built by the United States government in Black Bay, River Sally, Pearls, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. So we continue this partnership to ensure that we continue to build resilience, to ensure that we reduce vulnerability, reduce risk, and we're able to build our district teams, enhance our district teams, provide training for them so that in the event that we have to respond to a hazard, whether it be natural or man-made, we have the training, we have the skills, and we have the physical facilities.
Chief Military Liaison Officer for Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, Commander Jamie Collins, commended the Government of Grenada and NADMA for its stance on disaster preparedness.
NADMA's vision to develop a culture of prevention and safety among all sectors of society here is commendable, as is your unwavering response to crisis in an era that's increasingly exacerbated by climate change. I'm proud of NADMA's high standard of excellence, and your response capacity has certainly helped minimize and negate the impacts of disasters to this nation. You all should be very proud of your efforts. Today, we're here to strengthen our long-lasting partnership in hopes that this Emergency Operations Center, or EOC, filled with new equipment, will assist in disaster preparedness and emergency response for Grenada. This EOC will help consolidate response efforts and facilitate emergency services that will ultimately serve your nation's citizenry. This building and equipment will allow NADMA to prepare and mobilize resources more effectively and deliver vital relief services to the government of Grenada.
Ambassador Linda Tagliatella also commended NADMA on its commitment to boost and maintain preparedness efforts in and out of disaster periods.
It's a significant step in enhancing Grenada's disaster preparedness and response capabilities. This partnership between the National Disaster Management Agency and the United States Southern Command has proved to be successful in that each of the emergency centers, both here and in Carriacou, were given $225,000 worth of state-of-the-art resources, including communications equipment, monitoring systems, and disaster management tools essential during times of crisis.
2 emergency operations centers were also completed and handed over to Grenada and Carriacou in 2021 under the U.S. NADMA EOC and Disaster Warehouse projects.
Right, so that's good. Good news. Good news there for NADMA and for our people here in Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. You have to be always prepared. I want to say to all of us, there is a move by the opposition forces to cherry pick certain things and make it news, make it the conversation. And that's deliberate because they don't want you to focus on the positive things that are happening in Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. They don't want me and you to talk about the good things. So when they cherry pick 1 or 2 issues and they throw it out there, they believe that will become the conversation in going forward. We have to guard against that. Let us talk about the good things that are happening in Grenada and around us. And when we talk about the good things, it tends to make the opposition forces angry, blue, bitter, because they would say, well, Kim Jones is out there telling people, just talk about the good things only. Why not talk about the negative things and the bad things? That is what they actually say in different quarters. But they have grown accustomed to complaining and grinding and groaning and highlighting only 1 or 2 negative things. And they make that the conversation and they make us forget that we need to be grateful and thankful for all the good things that are happening in our country. Plenty good things are happening for our people. This government is working overtime to make sure that our people are happy. This hotel, this Kimpton by Kawana Bay Resort, this particular hotel, if our government did not step in and settle this matter, this particular hotel would be there like a white elephant on the hill, unfinished or uncompleted, and just there, nothing happening. Now the government can have another developer take over the project, develop the project, so our people will get work in the construction industry, and our people will get work when it's operational. That is what you want. You want jobs to be created for our people. So again, that's the vision. The NNP could care less, right? So they fell out with the developer over stupidness, and the people who were working there were sent home because we had hundreds of men and women working there in the construction phase. Huh? Yeah, working in the construction phase and benefiting in a big way from this project while it was, ongoing. But then it stopped. All the men and so on, they had to go home. They had to find something else. And when the hotel becomes operational, then our people will get work. Our people will get work, to be, let's say, accountants, housekeeping, chefs, bartenders, just name it. Gardeners, we can go on and on and on and on. Managers, supervisors, our people will get work. So it's a good thing. It's a really good thing when a government could think, just not just in front of our face or our nose, but beyond that, think down the road, the benefits that can be derived from that. Only recently, the government engaged young people. See that photo of young people engaged in CV writing, cover letter writing, interview skills, what you need to do, how you need to dress, how you need to prepare yourself for an interview on the job, that kind of training. And I think that's commendable. It is commendable. So the government engaged a lot of young people, the Ministry of Youth, Sports and so on, the Honorable Ron Redhead and his team. They engage a number of young people where they train them to prepare a proper CV, where they train them to write a proper cover letter, prepare a proper cover letter, where they train them for interviews, preparing themselves for an interview. And we are not hearing those good things out there in the media. We are not, because still the NNP has a foothold in the media in Grenada. And what they would do is to highlight what they want to highlight, because they would cherry pick issues and try to highlight one or two negative things and make that the news. And all of them would run with it. Well coordinated. It's like a synchronized operation, right? All of them would push the same narrative. They have not been able to really successfully get the agenda across effectively, but they're all over the place. In fact, I was saying the opposition forces are on radio, social media, just name it. And you have a lot of opposition forces. Sorry, not operation, but opposition. Opposition forces in Grenada. Opposition. You look at some of those programs and podcasts, they're all opposition driven. They want to see NNP back into power, and they're working overnight with all their falsehoods, all the misinformation, all the propaganda. But they're not able to get through, because this government is a working government. This government is a results-based oriented government. And that's the difficulty they have. Because every day you hear about something good happening for Grenada, something positive happening. So that is causing them to be very, very uneasy. They're not able to hold the end with the misinformation and rumors and scandals. So again, we're doing a wonderful job. Folks, you have to pull on the curtain at this point in time. I want to thank you very much for being a part of the program. I want to wish you all the best. Have a wonderful day. I'll be back with you tonight. Tonight, starting from 8 in the hub. Tonight, God's willing.